If laughter is the best medicine, my guest today has the cure. He's an Emmy-nominated actor, writer, comedian, and impersonator. And believe it or not, former high school classmate of mine. Yes, that is so true. And I cannot wait to talk with him. Hello and welcome to Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. I am just so excited to welcome John Domenico. Thanks for being here, John.
Yeah, baby. Thanks for having me on, darling.
Well, that's one of his characters. Among many of John's accomplishments, he's been impersonating Austin Powers, as you heard, and Dr. Evil since 1997, awarded Best of Las Vegas Impersonator for the past 3 years. In 2007, People magazine wrote that Domenico's Powers was the best. John is best known for his award-winning Donald Trump impersonation, as seen on ABC's The View, the Laugh Factory's International Trump Competition, and many other programs. And he's the official Trump for Conan O'Brien, among others. And he's also performed as Trump on the Howard Stern Show, James Corden, Stephen Colbert, and Domenico is the voice of Trump on the best-selling audiobook, The Method to the Madness.
Oh, I have that book right here.
I love it. You know, and I could go on and on because this is a long bio right here.
And I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. So,
well, that's fine. That's fine. People get it, right? We're doing always doing it from home.
Right.
So that's just scratching the surface. And as I said, we were high school classmates, and the senior class show. We were both involved in that. And just how long ago was it that you knew you really wanted to do this?
when I was a kid, I grew up in Ambler, which you know of, and I grew up in the row home section. And all the neighbors, this is the late 60s, and they would all sit out in the summer. And I realized early on I could do voices, especially like Ed Sullivan. So I would watch Ed Sullivan, and then John Biner would be on, and I could remember his act. So I would walk outside, and there's all the adults sitting out in the summer. I go, now, ladies and gentlemen, right here in our shoe, the fabulous Garbacho brothers and Girl Scout Troop 625. Girls, stand up and show us your cookies. And I was 5. I was 5 and 6. And
you were 5 doing this?
Yeah, I was 5. And my neighbor was like, oh my God, who's this precocious kid who was, I didn't know I was fearless, but I had no fear. Right. I just wanted to perform. I just wanted the affirmation of people laughing, because when somebody laughed, I thought that was the greatest thing, because I'd watch a comedian on TV, and that audience in New York or LA would laugh. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So, and that grew into wanting to be an actor, writer, filmmaker, all those wonderful things, except there was one tiny problem. When I wasn't doing an impression, I really couldn't be understood because I had a severe speech impediment.
I just read that in your bio, and I never knew that about you. Talk to us a little bit about that before we get into your whole career here.
So, it was the late 60s, and I basically, from what people told me, my brothers and my mom and my sisters, I sounded like Elmer Fudd. Everything in my mouth was really big. So it was like, I can do Austin Powers goes, my adenoid's really big, my tongue is really big, all of this stuff is really big. And I didn't really know the mechanics of how to speak properly. So in all of that time in speech therapy, the speech pathologists, the speech therapists were removing the impediment, but the bonus was they were teaching me the mechanics of how to do other voices, throat placement, nasal placement, vocal production, where the sound should be. You know about the vocal mask, how we produce sound here, and then at the point where you hit all together should be right here. But you take all of those things like throat placement, nasal placement, cadence, and I take all those elements when I do a voice, and that's how I break down a voice.
Wow. So in some ways they were training you for your career today.
They were, because I can listen to a voice and go, I'm pretty sure I can do that voice because I can hear the elements, and then I just reassemble the elements and do it myself, And certain ones are amazing. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. How did you develop these characters? You were doing Trump before he was president.
So 2004.
A long time.
Yeah.
So how do you develop a character?
So I always, my whole thing is, if I like a voice, and as a kid, like I mentioned, Ed Sullivan and John Biner did his act, but then I discovered Groucho Marx. So I listen, Groucho is kind of, they say the secret word. Remember the way he used to talk? It was very musical. And he was very funny to me. And he would sing a song in one of the movies. It was, hello, I must be going. I came to say I cannot stay. I must be going. And I always loved his music built into his comedy. A lot of great comedians have kind of a musical element. And he's like one of my base characters in the sense like he's a rock. He's like part of how I speak and how I think. But then like, again, at the same time, Columbo was on when we were kids. So I was thinking, wait a second. I think I can do that voice. That voice sounds, sir, I hate to bother you, but that voice sounds very familiar. So one more thing, sir. And I just like, I did. And so I would hear a voice and I loved Peter Falk. I mean, I loved as an actor, I loved Columbo. So if I liked a character and a voice, I would pick it up. And then years later, I learned Peter Falk was doing Humphrey Bogart. And I used to do Humphrey Bogart, but Humphrey Bogart used to have the way that he spoke. Listen, sweetheart, he was a kind of a gangster kind of character. But all of these things start kind of working together because Peter Falk was actually doing Humphrey Bogart, and Humphrey Bogart was kind of took his thing from somebody else. So all voices have elements of other voices. So, and the reason I mention that is because if you take Trump, which I've been doing now since 2004, there's a little bit of Groucho in him. And there's a little bit of that sound, that obviously the New York sound because he's from Queens, but also when I was really trying to crack his voice and get it to be as authentic as possible, I thought, who else is from Queens? And who else talks like Trump because he's so unusual? But then I thought about Christopher Walken, and Walken, when he speaks, he does that same staccato thing that Trump does. So there's a little bit of Walken, there's a little bit of Groucho, there's a little bit of these other, and I kind of build each one based on those vocal elements that I learned from the speech therapists and speech pathologists.
I find that so amazing. And how long does it take to perfect something like that? Because you can't just do it one day and go out on stage,
No, you really can't. You know what it is? It's when I can improvise in the voice. When I can really, like Austin Powers, I've been doing this a long time, baby. Yeah. And, with Austin Powers, the great thing was I had already been doing Wayne from Wayne's World in 91 and 92, because Mike Myers and I are, you call it being in the genetic range. So I'm in the same genetic range as Mike Myers. So when he used to do Wayne's World in like 91, all right, excellent. Hi, I'm Wayne Campbell from Aurora, Illinois. Sweet. All right. So when he came out with Austin Powers and his other characters that he did on SNL, I was like, oh, I can do this. I've already done one of his voices, and I love all things British. So it was very easy to do kind of a hodgepodge London accent, baby. Yeah. And then with Dr. Evil, it was kind of a slower voice. And I noticed it was somewhat like Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. Okay, but they're actually doing Lauren, the founder of SNL, the creator of SNL, Lauren Michaels. So Lauren Michaels has many impersonators, but Mike Myers basically stole Dana Carvey's. So I knew like voice wise, these are really close, and I'd be able to do these. And then you hear a voice, and you just work on it and work on it and work on it, where all the elements kind of fall into place. Like someone like Dr. Phil, what were you thinking? Okay. Hey, listen, it doesn't matter how flat you make a pancake. It's got two sides. You can dress a squirrel in a kimono, but it still won't speak Japanese. Okay.
I love it. You're just, of course I'm going to tell you you're great, but you really are great.
Oh,
and I'm not just saying that. You really are. I didn't even know you did all of those voices. I've seen you do. This is how we connected. You popped up, I guess, on my TikTok or Instagram. And I'm like, wow, this guy's a really good Trump impersonator. And then I'm like, hold on a second. John C. Domenico, wait a minute. And I was like, I can't get over this. I mean, I really didn't know that you were doing all this. I mean, that's how
Oh
we
yeah,
meet.
it's been my living. It's been my, I
Yes.
started out as an actor, but you kind of get pulled to the things that you have the what you really desire, what you have the strengths for. And
Yes.
I've just
Yes.
I've been very grateful and very lucky. I've made a really great career out of it. And, Trump specifically, because I've been doing him for so long, since 2004, when he really announced in 2015, if you Googled Donald Trump impersonator, I was like the only one.
Wow. You were ahead of the curve on that.
I was ahead of the curve,
Yes,
which,
yes.
which is actually a big part of acting. It's like the actor prepares, it's Stanislavski teaches that.
But who knew? I mean, 2004.
Right. And the funny thing was, I had met him in 1990. When I performed at the at Trump Plaza. I did Tony and Tina's wedding for a year in Philadelphia,
Okay.
and then we moved to the Plaza, and I got to meet him then. But I had been kind of fascinated with him because I thought it was like a Horatio Alger story where, he's poor and he built up this business. Later on, you find out, his dad gave him $14 million and then $300 million and, all this other stuff. But I just thought he was, yeah. And, the funny thing is, I have my copy of Art of the Deal, which my wife at the time, Donna, had given me in 1987. She was a child, she's a therapist. And I said, I want the Art of the Deal. And she was like, oh God. So Christmas, I opened it up, and it's the Art of the Deal book. And the inscription is so fascinating to this day. It says, I don't like this guy. I don't like what he stands for, but I know you wanted the book, so Merry Christmas. Little did I know it would become like a 5-year monster period in my career.
My gosh, that is amazing. So how not only do you do the voices, you get into full character. And that is, to me, that's got to be, I mean, it took me an hour to put my makeup on this morning. How do you do that? Just to get into that. How do you have people help you, or do you figure it out yourself?
Well, one of the things is, since I studied to be an actor in New York, and I was in multiple theater companies, and I was lucky to be in some shows with some great makeup artists and great costumers and wardrobe people and all that kind of stuff. When I started doing the impressions, I, for some reason, went right to, I kind of skipped the thing where you get on stage like this and just do a bunch of voices. I was like, well, if I'm going to do a voice, I'm really trained as a character actor. I should do it as a character. It should be a fully developed 3D kind of thing. And that's how I approached all of them. It didn't matter if it was Austin Powers or Trump or I was shaving my head to do Dr. Phil. So somebody called me an extreme impersonator. I just think I'm an actor doing a character. And I want to make it as 3-dimensional as possible. I don't want it to be a one-note kind of thing. I didn't want Trump to be one note. And that came much later, when everybody and their mother was doing Trump impersonation.
Sure, absolutely.
I wanted to deliver more. I wanted to deliver, because a lot of my work, when I do corporate work and I'm on the road, a lot of time there's an element where I have to interact with people and totally ad lib. And that could be an hour or 2, or sometimes 3. So for me, I wanted to be totally vested in the character. So if I interacted with you, you'd walk away and go, I think I just was talking to Columbo, not an impersonator or Austin Powers or Trump. Or
is it hard to switch up? Can you change out of the character and change into a new one?
It's really tough, because you were just talking about getting to make it. When I do Trump, it takes about an hour, because just to glue the wig on takes about 20 minutes, and it's got to be set and pressed in. Then I have to, with makeup, I got to do a base, then I got to color my eyebrows, and I have to age around here and do the white. And my face is kind of is round. He's got a longer face. So then I have to contour my nose to make it look longer. And I have to do a cheat thing where I whiten this, and it kind of makes my face a little longer. And then I do another trick here so I kind of elongate my face and bring the wig back. The wig.
You really had to study.
I have to. And with all of my characters, I'm going to use him only because it's, kind of like the one I do the most. It takes about an hour to get into makeup, and then like a few more minutes to get into wardrobe. And I do it myself. And I worked with a couple of makeup artists who helped me design the makeup. So I would be able to apply it. I am not a makeup artist because my joke is my makeup never looks the same twice. I do all the steps, but it never looks the same twice. Sometimes I'll be like, this is pretty good. This looks really good. And other times I'm like, wow, that's way too white.
Yeah, right.
So, but having them help me design all the makeup for Guy Fieri and Austin Powers and Dr. Evil and all these things, it's a huge help. And I'm very self-sufficient, and I'm a self-starter. Obviously, you are too, because this is how we are. This is how we kind of survive. And
is it
thrive.
A Philly thing? I don't know. Is it a Philly thing?
I don't know. I mean, I just love. I'm just like I'm a worker bee. My dad was a worker bee. He was a steel worker at Standard Press Steel. A lot of people give me the compliment of being the hardest working man in show business, which I really appreciate. I wish I wasn't.
Talk to me about that. You travel a lot, and you mentioned corporate gigs, and that's really interesting. So a corporation will hire you for, say, their big annual event. And you'll go
for a
and
national sales meeting. I used to do the national sales meeting for AT&T. I would host their meetings. These were big. I mean, you just couldn't imagine how big these were. And I didn't even know about this world. This world I found out about accidentally through a buddy of mine when I first started out performing and trying to be an actor in New York. And I said, I need a job. And he said, you don't need a job. He said, you need work. Actors need work. Actors don't need jobs. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting. I was like, it's semantics, but I thought that's very interesting. And he was the one who told me about corporate work. And I literally had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know about trade shows. And this is a long.
Sure. Funny how you fall into things, right?
Yeah. And I did my very first corporate job. I was doing stand-up at the time, and I had booked a job and I was hating stand-up because I didn't realize how brutal stand-up was. You drive to Dayton, Ohio to play the Chuckle Hut for 4 days, and they put you in a broom closet, and they're like, oh, this is where I'm staying. Oh my God. So I had the Chuckle Hut. And I did a show, and of all places, I was in Lancaster at Villa East, which was actually a pretty good comedy club. It was like a 5-night a week, which a lot of clubs don't do that anymore. And this is 96, 97. And I was performing there. And the next week I had my first big corporate job where they flew me first class to Florida, to Orlando. They had a limousine waiting to pick me up. Stayed in the Dolphin or the Swan at Disney World, and worked with this amazing production team of all people from Broadway. So this was like a universe I didn't even know existed. And then as soon as I got there, I was like, this is where I want to be.
Got the limo service.
I want to be paid great. I want to work. My whole thing is I want to work with really talented people. I want to work with people that are going to elevate me, and I'm going to elevate them. I'm going to give 110%. And doing these shows, when you're doing a show and it's got a budget of over $1 million, it's incredible. And you get to be in front of a very smart, engaged audience. A lot of this stuff doesn't translate. I can't put it on credits. Casting directors don't care, but it makes me such a better performer because I'm getting so much time. I'm Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. I'm getting those 10,000 hours.
Do you have to, when you write the script for your performance, do you have to gear it towards the company? If it's AT&T, whatever, I'm on the phone, and
one of the things I've actually found out I was good at, I was able to take dense content and make it understandable. So I have kind of a specialty in that area. Like even before VoIP came out, VoIP phones, I had to do a thing for Lucent where I was working with the technical people, and I got to write the script, and they were like, oh, this is great. You really made it much more understandable than we could have, because they're kind of seeped in the technology. And do you remember the SD cards?
Yeah, yes. I remember floppy disks.
Yeah, well, the SD cards, I introduced the SD card. I worked for the association that created the SD card, and they hired me, and I did that for 15 years, to the point where they were ubiquitous.
Yeah, right. That's amazing.
It is, because I love learning, and I'm really curious, and I love going from doing something from Mako Auto Body to AT&T to Lucent for VoIP, and then the SD card. It's really very satisfying.
That's that's amazing. Now, do they give you here's the information, you figure it out, or do they give you kind of a framework of what to do? Is it different?
Yeah, they'll say, we'll decide on, like, is it a character? Is it not a character? Is it a humorous approach? I'll pitch them different ideas. For the SD card, early on, they had it popped up in a few things, but they were putting it in everything, like microwaves and phones and, your printer. So I had written one where I was just a guy at home and I was just moving the card between each one and having a conversation with my invisible wife, so. But having integrating the characters and everything else is always a big part of that. But honestly, after I did that corporate show, I pretty much stopped stand-up because I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, why am I doing this? Yeah.
Why am I driving 300, 400, 500 miles to make peanuts?
Mhm.
And and I loved it. I learned a lot. I learned to be a much better writer, learned timing and to get on stage and how to have an audience respond to you, because you literally, this is no joke, you've got about 7 to 9 seconds. And you've got to come out. You can't be overconfident, but you have to be confident enough that they want to listen to you. Because if you drop the ball, you're dead. You're dead.
No kidding. 7 to 9 seconds.
Yeah. and I'll give you the perfect example. I remember doing an 8:00 show at a club and I killed. I absolutely killed. And I came out at 10 and I bombed. I'm like, what happened? But if you're not on your game, and that's why, comedians are amazing. And that's why they're so valuable, that they know they are in it. Their persona's on fire the second they walk on stage. And that's so important.
I couldn't even imagine doing something. I would be, do you get nervous? Because I would be nervous.
Stand-up makes me, stand-up's the only thing that makes me.
But even these corporate events, you're fine going out.
I'm fine because I'm behind a mask. I'm the character, and I can become the character. You know what I mean? You people are horrible. You're absolutely horrible. It kind of buys you. You're a character as opposed to yourself. When you get on stage and you are yourself, that's the hardest thing to be. You're totally vulnerable. You're basically saying like me or hate me, whatever it is. But you gotta have the strength.
I give anybody credit. I'll tell you, I give you credit because that is just, you are putting yourself out there. And even doing the corporate thing, you still have to be funny there as well. So
I did a show the other night in Tampa for a big medical device company, and I was me. And I was like, the first time I had been nervous in a while, but you just go out there and again, it's a corporate audience. They're not going to throw tomatoes at me.
No.
And at the price of tomatoes right now, I'd be like, hey, let me grab that one. But it's 10,000 hours. It's having the experience. It's having the confidence and luck. Yeah. And I've been very lucky, in the last 3 years, joining the Howard Stern team as Trump and having the years at Conan and Kimmel and James Corden. It's been so incredible.
The harder you work, the luckier you get, as they say.
And boy, that too. You know that this is nothing is handed to you.
No, nothing is. Yeah. But so how do you deal with all the travel, and what was it like over the pandemic? Were you sort of like, I kind of, as horrible as that was, did you kind of like the downtime, or were you like, I got to get out of here?
It's funny because I had mentioned when we spoke before that I'm usually on the road about 25 to 30 weeks a year, pre-pandemic. And to be home and to be like, you're home, like you're not going anywhere and nothing's happening.
No, none of us were. Yeah.
And that first year I really lucked out. I did a lot of, I'm on Cameo. I did like hundreds of cameos, hundreds of them. And it was really great. I was working all the time and we started doing virtual stuff and I was doing things remotely. And I have a TV studio here in my house. So shooting things. So I'd shoot things and people would have online meetings. And then I had the audio studio and I would do radio call-ins and Stern and do voiceover work. And then I have the green screen. And I was like, this is great. And I was reading a lot. And, I don't really have the time to read as much as I want, but I read like 75 books over COVID. So, and that was because I wasn't wasting and I hate the word wasting, but so much time when you travel is
It's a
getting to
lot
the
of time.
airport,
Yeah.
checking in at the United desk, getting through, TSA, going to get some food,
Yeah.
hitting the bathroom before you get on the plane, waiting in line to get on the plane. You're on the plane for 5 or 6
Yeah.
hours. Then you get out and when all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, travel's a waste of time.
Yeah. I kind of like this virtual world, right?
Yeah, I'm doing my work. I'm getting it done. And I've done so much traveling. I've been lucky to travel around the world, but it really woke me up to the fact that when you travel as much as someone like me, time is so valuable.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm trying to really optimize all the time. My last few jobs, I was listening to books, I was journaling when I could, I was reading when I could, and just really being very aware. One of the quotes that I love is, I don't know who said it, but it's later than you think. And I always want to be aware of that.
Yes. And the older we get, the more that statement is true. Yes,
I
absolutely.
am closer to the end than the beginning.
Me too. Well, we went to high school together, and you think about that, when you're 18 or whatever, 15, you think it's endless time. And as you get older, I always say, once you're over the hill, you pick up speed, because you do. And once you get older, you start to think like every moment is precious. I feel the same exact way now. And now that you're traveling again, are you glad to be back, or do you wish you had a little bit more balance?
It's like a double-edged sword. I just finished up in Tampa. I'm going to Chicago in less than 2 weeks, and Michelle, my fiance, is coming with me, so that's really nice. And we love Chicago. And then I go right to Montreal, and then I go right to San Diego, and it's like, it's great. I feel so blessed. But is there a way that I can do this where I don't have to travel as much and I can enjoy my home and be more productive?
You got to get more radio gigs, because you
I got to do more voiceovers. I've got to do
voiceovers.
more voiceovers.
Absolutely. But it's what you do. But is there ever a time that you're just like, I'm just not into this today? I'm just not. I mean, we all have a day like that. When we go to our regular jobs, there's a day you're just like, okay, it's not my best day. How do you get yourself? You have to be up. You have to be on. Like you said about, you were on in the one set and then you did it again and it just wasn't as good. Why? You did the same thing. Well, that's a golf game right there. That's kind of the same thing as a golf game. But what is it that you do to get yourself up if you have that kind of the travel was tough, or getting into the hotel was tough? I'm sure you've had these moments and things like that.
Oh, I haven't. I've actually I've asked that question to some peak performers that I know, and some people who are also in the industry.
Yes, you're very into that, which is great,
Yeah. And it's one of these things where this is what you have. I'm very lucky that someone is paying me to do what I do. Someone is depending on me to do what I do. There is a weird thing where I hate this. I gotta put on this friggin' wig. All those kind of things. I'm just not into this tonight. And then it's on. And then I always do a prayer and something to center me before I go on stage. And I say, God, please, this isn't about me. This isn't about my ego. Let me entertain these people. Let me lift these people up. Let me take them away for 45 minutes from all the things that they have to deal with. And that kind of gets me into the right headspace. And then I do this thing where I open my crown chakra and my root chakra, and I take the energy of the sun and the energy of the core of the earth. I know this sounds all kind of crazy, but it's like, it's the way I get into this.
Yes.
And they meet in my body, and I'm Catholic. So the Sacred Heart's very, very, has a lot of meaning to me. So I pull that energy in both ways, and I activate the Sacred Heart. And then I picture the room I'm going to perform in. I picture the stage, and I put white light on the stage. I put white light on the audience, and I put white light in the entire room. And from where I'm standing to where I'm walking to the stage, that all becomes white light. And that process pulls me out of that because I'm human and
Yes.
I'm a baby and I can easily get aggravated. You know what I mean? Someone
Well,
cuts me off in
sure.
traffic. So, or there's, I live here in Las Vegas and I'll have to drive somewhere in town to perform. And I'm just, why did I accept this job? What the hell is wrong with me? I don't need to do this. And then you step on stage, hello, everybody. Isn't this tremendous? So
well, you are a true performer because I am sure
I'm a
that you're not the only guy that feels that way. You're a professional. That's right. And like, as you said, you feel blessed because there are other people out there that aren't as blessed, that they're trying to make it, that haven't gotten the jobs.
Kill for the opportunities.
Absolutely. And that's what you have to think about. Let me ask you this. When I opened this podcast today, I said, laughter is the best medicine. And I really feel like that. I mean, we all know what it feels like to truly belly laugh. It just, it's almost like a drug. Like it feels like your whole body relaxes and you just feel so good. And you talked about that. You said to make people laugh for 45 minutes and just kind of forget their problems, especially where we are right now in our world. I mean, we're still kind of coming to the end, I hope, of this pandemic, or at least learning to live with it a little bit more. And things are opening up again, which is wonderful. But we have gone through a lot and people are still feeling the residual effects of just being so isolated. What does it feel like to you when you make people laugh? Inside, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel so good. It even goes back to when I was a kid. To make somebody laugh, it's a couple of things. There's this connection you have with them in that moment that I said something, I did something that this person, it tickled their funny bone so much that they just laughed out loud and they're having this release of chemicals in their body. And I think that's why comedians, somebody like Sebastian Maniscalco, who's just risen in prominence because he's unbelievable, so funny, and people need to laugh, and they don't just need to laugh. This is something that I've discovered with COVID, and I knew this, but it just really drilled it home. When I'm in front of an audience, like I was in Tampa, or anytime pre-COVID, they're laughing, but they're laughing as a community. It's a shared laugh. It's like, I remember going to see Animal House at the Montgomeryville Eric Theater. Remember the Montgomery?
We all had toga parties back in high school, of course.
So you would go there and you'd see this movie in this tiny theater, but even though it was a couple of hundred people, it was packed. And people were all laughing together. And there's this thing about communal laughter. You can go watch Animal House by yourself. It's just not the same. People always say, it was good. It just wasn't the same. It's this thing, this communal laughter. There's this kind of empathetic, sympathetic thing that happens that everybody kind of lifts up, and it becomes this wonderful thing, and people want to share it. People say, I saw Sebastian Maniscalco and there's this thing that he does about the neighborhood, and the people stop by, or they say Jim Gaffigan, and people want to share those moments with you. No one comes out of a movie, out of a dramatic play, and goes, there's this scene where he kills the guy. Let me tell you all about it. No one does that. No one does that about Shakespeare. But people will do that with comedians and funny movies because we need that. We do.
We need it so much. And we need that connection. And that was such a good point that you make, because I never really thought about the community of laughter and bringing people together like that. And we need that more now than ever. I think we all realize, and we don't want to get into the politics, but our world has been so divided, and it is something that can bring people together. And
anything that unifies people is so wonderful, and I think it's so important. And I think about during World War II, when my dad was a World War II veteran, he went off to the South Pacific, but what it must have been like here in the U.S. when just a massive number of men and boys, really, I mean, some lied about their age of 16 to 17 and disappeared. And talk about a dark time where Europe is being overrun and England was almost overtaken, and all these, you've got three major, I mean, we are in bad times here because of a lot of things that are happening, that are echoing that time period. But you have to remain positive. It's the one thing that keeps us all moving. It's like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. This guy was in Auschwitz, and one of the most important things you can do is just stay positive and humor is so valuable, and I'm so lucky to be able to, with my videos or TikToks or an Instagram post, to be able to make somebody laugh. And one of the things that's the most heartwarming to me is during the time when I was doing a lot of videos for YouTube, I was getting messages from people from, like, I'm not kidding, like Estonia,
Wow.
Uzbekistan, all these places where people say, thank you so much. It's been so tough for us. We really appreciate the laughter. And I was just like, it was so nice to see where they were from, and have people comment, to know that here I am in my house in Las Vegas shooting something that's affecting somebody, halfway around the world, who's having a difficult time because it's COVID, and we can leave our house. Like, they can't leave their house. There's military on the street, and, and food's delivered, and not delivered like DoorDash, like, chunks of cheese.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, that really, that really speaks to me, because you're doing something so, people may not look at it like that, what a comedian does, but it really is so valuable. We do need that. Just like we need music, we need art, we need all of that in our lives. We're human
100%.
And I think you're doing such a great thing. So what's the future hold for you, John?
The future holds a bunch of these corporate jobs. And one of the goals that I have this year is to get back to acting. I have kept putting it off, but I really want to. I'm very close to LA. I can be there in 40 minutes by plane, and get back, and I get the auditions going again, and build those relationships with cast and directors, and just hopefully get some things on Netflix. And there's so many shows in production. So it's
incredible how many outlets there are, right?
Oh my God.
When we were growing up, it was 3, 6, and 10. And we didn't even have a remote control. We had to get up and fix the rabbit ears, right?
Yeah, we had to get up and get through the snow, and climb up the TV, and everything.
It was it was brutal. It was horrible. I know, but now in some ways I'm like, there's so much overload. Like, what show do you look at? What streaming service do you buy? At some point, you're just like, I got to cut this off and go outside and do something other than watch a show, because it gets to be too much.
You got to get out. You got to everything now. I'll tell you one of the things. I read a great book, because you and I are freelancers. We have to deal with so much. It's a great book called Willpower. I forget, John Tierney, I think, is one of the writers. These guys are 2 researchers, and because of the times that we live in right now, we have decision fatigue by like 12 noon. There's literally, we use up the ability to make an informed decision, because we have to make all these stupid decisions.
Yes, I can see that. Absolutely.
all the time. And it's, like, what streaming platforms do I buy, and what show should I watch?
Oh, how do you work the clicker? We have 5 remotes. Which one?
Right.
That's
and
enough.
All these things, and we have to make so many decisions that we never used to have to make,
right,
even 30 years ago. So it's kind of wearing us out. So we have to get to a point where, you've got to be judicious. Going back to this whole time thing we were talking about, we've got to be judicious with our time, with our thoughts, with our decision making.
Yes.
All of these things, because when you're a freelancer, every minute counts in everyone's life.
Of course.
When you've got to make decisions that are affecting your income and how much time you're going to make, like, it's okay to say no to certain things. And I had said, I've had to take a little social media diet. Not that anyone's missing me. You know what I mean? Like, where's John?
I'm missing you.
He hasn't, what's he doing?
And
then I come on and I post 9 things.
I get right all at once. Before we go, I do want to ask you, I almost forgot. I did want to ask you, I saw you doing pull-ups, and I'm a big fitness person, and I love it.
Kind of like got reconnected.
Yeah, and I just think it's so great that you're doing that. But when you speak about time, I just read an article where people do have the time. That's like really kind of a bogus excuse. It's just they don't make the time.
We waste a lot of time.
Think how much time you're on your phone scrolling or watching a show. Right. That half hour, 45 minutes could have been spent taking a walk or working out or doing whatever it is. So how do you find time? How do you squeeze it in with your crazy schedule?
I'll tell you what. Let me see if this is what changed everything for me. Hopefully it's right here. Is it here? Okay, so this is the book that changed things for me. I've been obsessed with having more time and being able to do more, and I was always not getting everything done. And I came up with. I came up with it. I found if somebody recommended this book to me, if you can see it, it's Miracle Morning.
I see
And
it.
this book basically says, whenever you used to get up an hour before, a full hour. And then I had seen this other thing by a Marine, U.S. Marine, talking about getting up at 4:30. So what I did was I split the difference and started getting up at 5:30 every morning. And in that time, I really made a point to center myself as opposed to coming out of the gate like a rocket ship and going in all these different directions.
Yes, which a lot of people do. Get
Right,
up,
and
get dressed, get out.
Yeah, you know, and don't check my phone when I wake up, no matter what, unless like someone's on their deathbed and, you know, don't check my phone, have a bulletproof morning routine. So that's like, I get up, I get dressed, I give gratitude right to start the day to kind of right my mindset. Because what we were talking about before, you can get off of that. So I'm so thankful for my home and to be able to make a living and my friends and my family. And that just really keeps me centered. And then have breakfast and then journal. I'll do a reading on Stoicism and then try to read 2 pages of the current book that I'm reading and make my bed. That's one of the most important things.
Yes,
have that
I've heard about that.
and do that every day. So every day there's these 5 or 6 things, and then go work out. Because for me, I have learned, because my brain is just, I've got squirrel brain because I have ADHD and all those wonderful things that I've carried over from my childhood. But if you can harness that and get to the gym, it really helps you focus.
Absolutely. And you cross it off your list, because if you wait sometimes to the end of the day, something comes up.
I have to tell you, I did that this week. One of the days this week, I was like, you know what? I'm going to push and I'm going to do this at 4:00. And I've done this literally thousands of times. And I'm like, oh my God, do you never learn? Do you never learn? So I made up the time the next day and put more time in and hit all my numbers. But that's the only way. You've got to have, and I know that people have kids and this is that, but people who are watching this who are maybe our age or a little younger, if your kids are older, just come up with a bulletproof structure that you can have every single morning. Make it your time. There's so many demands on all of us, but make sure like the first thing, there's a saying, you pay yourself first. Well, pay yourself first with time in the morning to set your day, set your intentions for the day. And that could be,
I really love that. And you're a late night guy. So if you can do it, I mean, you perform at night.
Yeah. And also, and I'll leave a booking, go right home, get out of if I'm in full and go right to bed. I've done so much socializing, and I'll be really strategic if I am going to stay out late. But for the most part, it's like, this was great. I did my show. I have to go home. I have to stay on this, because even if I'm living, let's say I live to be 85, well, that's 25 years I have left. So that's not a lot of time. So I don't need to stay out another night and drink. I've done that. College.
I think we all, those days are behind us now, right?
Yeah, they're behind us, and I don't need to do that. I showed up. I interacted with people. I've done what I need to do, but now I need to leave and go to bed so I can stay on this schedule that has been very, very valuable to me and has been very helpful to me.
That is amazing. Well, you really shared some deep stuff here, John. I mean, more so than I thought that you would get into. And I really appreciate that, because you got me thinking, and I'm sure you have other people thinking as well. And if someone, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I'm in a mastermind group and we share a lot of best practices. These guys are great guys, and a couple of the guys are really peak performers, and they inspire me. And I just want to, when you get something that works for you, you want to share it, at least put it out there. Somebody else can try it. I bought a stack of these Miracle Morning books. I just bought a bunch of them, and I would meet somebody or have a friend, and I'd say, you know what, I think you'll get a lot out of this book. And I would just give it to them. We'd go to dinner and I'd say, here, just read this. I think you'll really appreciate it.
That is amazing. And it's changed your life, it seems. It really has
Oh, it
helped
has.
you.
It's really been very helpful. I'm much more centered. I get more done. I feel better. I'm not as moody because I'm setting the day up for
Mhm.
success. And I'm not just talking about like money. I'm talking about being productive and centered and spiritual and all those things you need to do to get through the day and not fall off the wagon,
Oh
so to
yeah, because
speak.
some people get up, eat a quick, or they grab a donut or the whatever,
Yeah.
get to work, pick up the kids. Everything's a rush, 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 and we don't feel like we have that time.
Yeah.
So give yourself that time in the morning. But really, you made a good point. You got to get to bed a little earlier as
Yeah, you
well.
do. And
On
you
the
think
other
about it,
end,
most nights you're wasting time. You're flipping through Netflix, or you're something that you can easily cut out of your schedule,
yes,
because
yes.
that the morning time is far more productive. The evening time, people are like, I just want to, decompress. Okay, you've been decompressing for a long time. You don't need that much decompression. Your decompression is outweighing your productivity.
Very good. You coined a new saying. I like it. So, someone watching, listening, is interested in maybe booking you for a corporate event or just to find out more about you,
Yeah.
where can they go?
They can, I'm all over the interwebs. You can go to thejohnnydshow.com. If you want to book me for a cameo, it's Cameo, The Johnny D Show. I'm pretty much The Johnny D Show on all platforms other than Twitter, where I'm Johnny D23 or something like that. But I'm very proud to announce we now have 6.1 million followers on TikTok. So I'm trying
That's
to
incredible.
Yeah,
That is
it is. It's
incredible. Oh
really,
my gosh.
that's
Yeah.
really my fiance Michelle. She has really built that because it takes a lot of time to spot the trends and shoot the videos, and she's the director. She tells me what to do.
Oh, you
She
gotta
did
love
that.
that. You
Yeah,
really do. That's
yeah,
great to have somebody that's in your corner like that. And
yeah. Totally.
congratulations on your
Thank you.
upcoming marriage. That's really wonderful. You sound like you're just happy and doing great. And I'm just so glad to see that, John.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it took me 60 years, and I'm almost 60, and I'm like finally hitting my stride. So late
Good for
bloomer.
you. And you're working on it. I mean, you're making
Yeah.
an effort to do it. It's not just something that happens. So
No,
God
no,
bless.
no. And every day, I call it, every morning I wake up and start the campfire, because it goes out when you go into the tent and go to sleep. So every morning you get back up, you go through the woods, find the things to start the fire, put them all together, and restart the campfire for the day. Because it's like sleep. You can't store sleep, and you can't store your growth. It has to be done every single day. It's like losing weight. You have to be working on yourself every single day. You can't lose 10 pounds in a day, but you can lose 10 pounds in 10 days.
Well, maybe you can, but I'm not sure I could do that, but good for
Yeah, it
you.
was maybe a little extreme.
Yeah, that was maybe a little extreme, but thank you so much for being with me. This was so much fun. I had
This
a
was
great
great.
time.
You're such a
Yeah.
great interviewer, and I had
Oh,
said
thanks.
before, I so appreciate your positivity. I remember it back from high school, and I'd like to ask you a question. I know we're running a little long, but where does that source? And your brother was this way too. Where does that source of
Remember my brother?
positivity come from? You know what I mean?
I feel kind of the way you feel. I feel very, very blessed in my life. I feel
Mhm.
very appreciative. One of the things I have to say is I've had a great family. I've had
Yeah.
such love in my life. And I'm gonna cry now because I lost my mom
Oh,
last year. So,
yeah.
but I've had such love, and that has pushed me through knowing people care about me,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so that gives me the strength every single day. I have a wonderful husband. I have, God bless, beautiful kids, just a family of support, my brother, my sister, and I just feel very blessed. And I'm just so happy. And I always say, if you have good health and you're blessed with good health, don't waste it. Do
Yeah.
something. God gave you a body for a reason, and it gave you a healthy body. Take care of it. It's just so important. And that's kind of the basis for everything else that I do.
Right.
Because, I met my husband in a gym, working out together all of our lives. That has just kept us focused and centered, and family. The love of family has been just a big, big part of all of it. But thank you
That's
for asking
beautiful.
that.
Yeah,
Making
yeah.
me
No, I've
cry.
had, when we first reconnected, I was like, oh, I love Robin Lucarini. And then I mentioned it to my
Lucarini.
brother. Yeah, old school. And I mentioned my brother Mike, and I said, hey, I just reconnected with Robin. I'm going to be on her podcast. She goes, I always liked her. Her and her brother, they
Oh,
were great. And it's like,
so nice.
we know the Massettis, and it's
Yeah.
thinking like these people from high school, I remember their positive energy, because your positive energy affected me back in the 80s. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
late
really
70s.
nice.
And that's a wonderful thing. And that carries over a lifetime. I think we all know who the, pain in the ass, needy, rotten people were, but the people who are positive leave this kind of imprint on you. And it's like, you know what? I really liked Robin. She was such a wonderful person. She was
that's
always, always friendly, always kind of inclusive. And I've always thought that about you and some other people we went to high school with. And as I've gotten older and I've met some very successful people, my thing is like, where does this come from? And thank you so much for that answer, because I really appreciate that. It's
And we
something
did.
that
I have to say, we had a beautiful high school. We had some really nice people, and I'm still in touch
we
with
had
a
some
lot of them.
really, I feel really lucky to have gone to
Yes.
Western. We had such a
Yes.
diverse group of people, very smart people. And I'd say overall, because I've heard horror stories from other people, like overall, like we lucked out. Like everybody
Yes.
was pretty good.
Yeah, we had a nice class. We had a great group. People don't do a senior class show anymore. Like we did that. We did cool stuff. We had beautiful opportunities to go on field trips back then. We just had a lot at Wissahickon High School. It was a great experience, and it launched me into my career today, as I started with the video and everything then.
Yeah,
so,
we had the video department. I got to make films. I got to write for stuff, and it was a wonderful, wonderful place with great educators who really cared.
They did, and I definitely got wonderful experience. It opened me up to opportunities that I'm still doing today, and it's just amazing. So thank you so much for sharing your time. I'm going to send this out to all of our classmates. Hopefully they'll watch it, and hopefully you can be at the next reunion, because
I would love to be there.
Fun. Yeah. So we're going to do one of your impressions, a lot of them. All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you,
God
Robin.
bless. If I make it to Vegas, I'll come see you.
You better.
I will.
All right.
I will.
I'll talk
Thanks.
to you soon.
All
See you,
right.
bye.
Take care. All right. Bye.